mouth type of thing, but actually have the community talk to the community.
Super cool.
I think it's going to be fantastic, and I'm really excited to both have Mike and Douglas join us. Hey guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey Craig, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Hello Craig, hello Beth.
Hi.
Hey Douglas again. Very cool. How is everything going for you guys so far? Honestly, Mike, how's the event going for you all the way over there in Australia?
It's been really good so far. I particularly enjoyed the developer keynote, which was in the afternoon for me. And I do miss the friends that I would normally be catching up with at TechEd, but I have to say it's really exciting that so many people can join in. It's a free event, and we have so many more people taking part, so that's very exciting.
All right. And Douglas, what about you? How's it been going for you? Chilling on your sofa, drinking your tea and watching the event. I've been in the back channels, folks. I've been keeping an eye on things back there. So Douglas, how's it been?
Yes, Craig, this is right. I had been chilling on the sofa and watching all the sessions that I could. Really enjoyed the keynote yesterday with Jürgen. And also, I really had the nice opportunity to attend Thomas Jung's session about HANA Cloud, and did a hands-on that was really amazing. And yeah, now I'm looking forward to a lot of activities today, and has been an amazing event up to now, and yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep us from Mike's topic. So Douglas, I'm going to turn it over to you so you and Mike can have your conversation and learn a lot more from each other, okay? So Douglas, it's all yours.
Okay.
Take it away.
Thanks a lot, Craig and Beth. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the session on keeping your SAP skills up to date. Hello and welcome again, Mike. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us how long have you been working in the SAP world?
Yes, my name is Mike Doyle. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, as Craig said. I've actually been working in the SAP world for 20 years now. I started off doing ABAP reports and interfaces, which I enjoyed a great deal, and I got to do lots of travel. I worked on a few projects around Europe because I was based in London at the time. And then after a few years, I started to branch out, and I did some work with Enterprise Portal, and I did quite a bit of Java Web Dimpro, if you remember that, and a little bit of JavaScript. And then when I moved to Australia in 2015, so we were actually both expats, Douglas, we're both living somewhere new. After I moved, I managed to move into UI5, and I also started writing the OData services that I needed to consume in Gateway. And so I did that for a while. And then more recently, I've done a couple of projects. I've done a lot more UI5, but I've also used the Cloud Application Programming Model, the CAP, and also quite a bit of the Cloud Platform Workflow as well.
Yeah, this is great because it sounds like you had a lot of different experiences, and yeah, you did the hard work needed to keep your skills up to date. So what do you think, Mike, has been the biggest change in that time?
Well, there's only one answer really. It has two different aspects, and the answer is the cloud. So when I started, everything was on-prem, and the last two projects I've done actually have been all cloud. And so that's one side of the coin, as it were. The other side is the rate of change that's enabled. So when I started work, I remember my fellow developers used to have lots of books on their desks. Everybody had a little mini library, and you'd have your book about ABAP and maybe a book about SQL or something else. And people would keep those books for 5 or 10 years. But what's happened recently is the rate of change is just ramped up and up. So already, the first generation of cloud platform, the Neo environment is already essentially deprecated. And, I only started working on that about 4 years ago. So that rate of change is just really dramatic, and it just seems to be changing faster and faster. And that's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it is very interesting and also inspiring for everyone, I'm sure. I can say that me too. I started in the SAP world around 2005, and I agree with your point of view regarding how things have changed. In fact, I think in the first 10 years of my career, technology was changing at a slower pace. I mean, I also started with ABAP, and then I worked to learn workflow and SAP screen personas. But now everything is changing quicker and quicker. So around 2015, I started just exploring SAP UI5 and also SAP Cloud Platform. And I see both technologies have changed a lot for the better from that time to now. So I also have this feeling that everything we know is changing at a pace never seen before. So Mike, given that, how have you managed to keep your skills up to date?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that it's all about getting the right project experience. You know, in the Agile Manifesto, they said working code is valued over documentation. And I think that real project experience has to be valued over training courses or reading blogs or anything else. And you never really become competent in anything until you have real world problems to solve. That's when you really learn, when the customer says, I want this, and you have to work out how to do that. And you may choose to focus on one area and really read up on that area. Maybe that's the thing you think is going to be the next big thing. But then if you don't manage to get the work in that area, then your skills will die because they're not being used. So what I would say really, the most important thing is to go broad rather than deep, so that you know a lot about the different services, the different tools out there, what they can do, so you can be alert when a customer says, oh, you know, I wish I could do this, that, or the other. You're aware of what's around. But there's no way you can possibly know all these different areas in great detail and with a great deal of competence. You can't possibly remember everything you would need to remember. So that's what I try and do. I go broad rather than deep. And then when some project work is coming up, I see a requirement where this particular new technology is able to solve the problem, then I try just in time to go really deep then and really learn that particular area just as the project work is coming up, and then really kind of focus on that area. And actually, I found OpenSAP is really good for that. So we were doing our Cloud Application Program model project this year, the CAP project, and it happened that the OpenSAP course was on just at the right time. So we were all very avid students of that OpenSAP course because we were just starting our project. And actually, even though I've done a CAP project before, the CAP Java runtime has really changed a lot. So, so those OpenSAP courses are fantastic for that when you really need to get into your subject just as you're starting the work.
Yeah, this is really amazing thoughts, and I also agree with you here. And I have had very similar experiences and faced the problems of keeping up to date in a very similar way. But I am also a big fan of books, and while I see them as good starter points at best, they are in fact no substitutes for real life practical experience, as you said. And yeah, I agree that we can become competent at something only after having solved some real world problems for our customers. And this is because it's the only way we can learn from other people's experiences and from the challenges that we only get to face when we are working to build something by ourselves. And yeah, by going broad, as you mentioned, we can become aware of many possibilities beyond our own expertise areas. And it is very important if we want to see innovation opportunities for our companies, or even if we want to find new career paths for ourselves. Yeah. By the way, OpenSAP is also one of my favorite sources of information to get up to date with new things coming out from SAP. And yeah, but Mike, now there are many established developers who want to move into new areas, but they don't know how to take the first step. Do you have any advice to them?
I would say you've got to have the mindset where you embrace new languages and new technologies. I think it was DJ Adams who was saying we should aspire to be a developer, not a programmer. If we think of a programmer as basically knowing one language and just wanting to continue with that, plow that furrow, in contrast, the developer is somebody who's willing to learn new things, whatever is required to solve the problem, essentially. So you have to embrace that mindset, because there's so many things coming along, you can't possibly just focus on one thing. And I'm always looking for work that requires some of the skills that I already have and some of the experience that I already have, but allows me to move into some new things as well. It doesn't always happen, but it's great when it does, that you have that role where you feel secure because you're using things you know well, but also learning at the same time. And learning a second language, as many of the viewers will know, is a lot easier than learning the first. And once you've learned one, it's easier then to learn the second and the third. I mean, as you would know, it's the same with spoken languages. I'm not much of a linguist. You know a few languages, I know, Douglas. But it's much the same with a spoken language. If you speak one, it's easier to learn another. And the other thing to remember, really, for confidence, is to remember that the key qualities of a developer, they're not really specific to the language or tool that you're used to using where you have the most experience. They're more general than that. So I'm thinking of things like perseverance. If you're debugging and trying to solve a particular problem, you need to have a lot of perseverance, but you also need to know sometimes you need to step away. Maybe you have a good night's sleep and next morning you solve the problem in 10 minutes. And other things are like testing. You have to be rigorous at testing. You never say anything's done until you've tested it and you're sure that it does. And also I'm thinking of, being able to research huge amounts of information to learn how to do what you need to do, and that whole idea of continuous learning. So what I mean by these is just you should have confidence that if you have those qualities, and say you're an ABAPer and you have a lot of ABAP experience, you'll have demonstrated all of those qualities. And then if you move into another area, another language, then all of those qualities will help you and you'll still be a good developer, even if you're on less familiar ground.
Yeah. I think this is a lot of very useful ideas then that everyone can make use to improve themselves. And also, I think when learning something new, it is extremely important to have a beginner's mind, because in the very beginning, we can have a massive feeling of incompetence. And if we are not prepared for that, we are going to feel frustrated and maybe even give up on our new endeavor. Yeah. I think we must be aware that we are making the decision of going through a similar path again, of learning something new, and we must know why we are doing it, so we can motivate ourselves during the hard times. And I think also having mentors and teachers can be extremely helpful to make this process easier. I learned and I still learn a lot from mentors and experts from the SAP community like Gregor Wolf, Thomas Young, DJ Adams, and many others. And yes, I think that learning a new language is very similar to learning a new technology or a new programming language, because with time, that feeling of incompetence will be replaced by a feeling of mastery. Yeah. So, but we can still influence the speed of this process by using the education you focus, like you said. So, Mike, do you have any other tips to aid learning?
Well, I think the most important thing really when you're reading blogs, for example, you want to be able to filter by quality because time is limited. I'm sure everybody's time is limited and there's so much content out there, it can easily be overwhelming. And if I'm only going to read 20% of all the blogs out there or 10% or whatever it is, I want it to be the best 10% ideally. And I find Twitter is actually a really good filter for that. So if you follow the right people on Twitter and where there's good content, somebody writes a good blog, you're going to hear about it because people will share it. And that's a good way to find out where the good content is so that you're really focusing down on that. The other thing is rather than just consuming blogs or reading the documentation, if you actually write blogs yourself, then that's actually a really good way to learn. That's something that Graham Robertson, he's a mentor down here in Australia, that's something that he says when he sits down to write a blog, you can't help but actually learn new things as you're trying to explain the subject. You can't explain something you don't understand fully. So that's a really good thing to do. And you have to remember as well, when you write a blog as a developer, you have an insight that the SAP people can't match because you're actually solving the customer's problems. It's a different thing. So you're using the tools to solve the problem. So that insight is actually important, and that will really help your fellow developers as well. And in the same way, actually, that writing blogs is a good way to learn, giving talks is also fantastic. Again, you have to master the topic. You have to think about what questions you're going to ask and how you're going to respond to that. You've given a few talks as well, haven't you, Douglas?
Yes, and I totally agree with the idea that teaching what you know or want to know will help you to learn more about that area. Yes, I have given talks about SAP Screen Personas and about my journey from being an ABAP developer and learning SAP UI5. In both cases, I have worked to learn a lot of new details so I could give better explanations to other people. So, Mike, what do you think are the up and coming technologies that we should all be trying to get into?
Well, it's a very difficult question, and I'm not even going to answer. I'm just going to say I don't really know. That's the honest answer. So I'll just carry on trying to read really broadly. At TechEd, I dip in and out of lots of different sessions just so I know what's going on, and then I'll just look out for project work where we may be able to use one of those new tools or technologies to solve the problem. And I think that in the SAP world, we must always be looking for what SAP is offering, but also what customers are choosing to buy and implement, because companies adopt innovations at different pace. And when we see some companies choosing to use any given new technology, we can many times believe that others will follow probably. So, Mike, do you have any closing words and suggestions for people who are watching us? I would just say get involved in the SAP community and in your local community. Since I moved here, I found it really fantastic to get involved with the Inside Track events, and I organise a Starmtish in Sydney. So it's great to meet people, and it's good fun, and it helps you to find out about that interesting project work where you might be able to do something new.
Yeah, I think this is amazing words, Mike. Thanks. So thanks a lot, Mike, for this amazing interview. I think it was really, really nice. And yes, Craig and Beth, now back to you in the studio.
All right. Thank you both so much, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.